Privacy and security. Sometimes e-commerce companies, they focus overly on marketing, they focus on the product. You can't overlook that basic necessity, that basic promise you have to your customer, keeping their information secure and private. Daniel Burstein, Director of Editorial Content for MarketingSherpa. We're here at the MarketingSherpa Media Center at IRCE, and joining me right now is James Koons, the Chief Privacy Officer of Listrak. Thanks for joining us, James.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about why security is so important. So we have right here is some data from the MarketingSherpa e-commerce benchmark study we just released, and we asked companies how frequently they evaluated certain aspects that had to do with customer responsiveness. And then on the left, you see how successful those companies are based on a success score we gave. And for security, the more frequently they evaluated the security of their company, of their site, the more successful they were. So why is the frequency of that evaluation so important?
So I think consumers today are savvy when it comes to privacy and security. We've all seen the stories of the data breaches. We continue to get those letters in the mail. We continue to get those, oh, your data may have been compromised, please change your password. So we can't help as consumers, but to be learned in that arena. And when you see a vendor that's taking steps and leading the battle edge there and taking a stance and constantly reevaluating, you want to trust them more. Being a board member of the Online Trust Alliance, that's something that we really focus on, is fostering and promoting trust in the online community. Working for an email service provider, it's very important to me. We're offering a full suite of marketing products online, and I want people to be able to trust that. So internally, and for me and for my customers, it's important. I mean, we run on a continuous audit basis. So we're looking at our own security practices continually. We're auditing our vendors. Speaking about that earlier this week, at our boot camp, telling folks that don't just evaluate your vendors once and done, put it on rotation, put it every year, every 6 months, whatever works for you, depending on that number of vendors. But I think that when you're transparent about that and you're showing your consumers and your customers that you're doing that and taking that step, they're going to trust you more because they know you get it. They know you realize that nowadays it's not a question of if something happens, it's when something happens. How are you going to be prepared and what are you going to do?
So you talk about those evaluations. What would you suggest to e-commerce companies? What should they be looking for in those evaluations?
So a vendor audit or a privacy and security evaluation can be I've seen them from 1 page to almost 100. And so things you want to look for is how they're storing their data. Do they have any certifications? The old SAS 70, which is the SSAE 16. What steps are they taking? Who's going to be touching the data? Are they working with anybody else? You don't want to find out that your important data is sitting at Joe's data shack in his grandmother's basement, in some Peoria, Illinois or somewhere. You want to make sure that they're following legit practices and standards, that they have a breach response protocol, that they're aware of all the laws and regulations. So I push for the most comprehensive. There's a lot of information out there. The Online Trust Alliance, we provide guidance for that. The IAPP, which is the International Association of Privacy Professionals, where I have my certifications from, and I'm a member there as well, also has available to anyone. Sample evaluations, but definitely you want to know where the data is, what the data is doing, what it's doing in transit, and what it's doing at rest.
Now let's talk about that data, because I think a lot of e-commerce companies, they think of the purchase information, right? But it's really much more than that, isn't it?
It is, and today, our CEO Ross Kramer earlier this week and throughout some of the show was speaking about we're collecting more data. We're collecting more data than ever before, and why? Because we want to target. And I heard a neat term a couple months ago. Somebody referred to it as hyper targeting, right? So we're just using all this data to really, really target our products, which is great for online marketing, right? We're getting the right products into the right hands. And well, what does that mean? We're sitting on a lot more data. And in talking with folks, they think, well, hair color, eye color, it means a lot to us because we're doing this hyper targeting, but really, do we really have to go to all this to protect it? Well, interestingly enough, working with the FBI's InfraGard and recently sitting on a panel with the FBI, I learned that data like that was actually taken from a makeup company, skin tone, eye color, and they use this data to create false IDs. So passports and things like that could potentially be used by a terrorist organization to gain access to the country. So when we think about having this amount of data, we never think that it could have an impact on our national security, but the potential is there.
I'd imagine an impact on the trust of the customer as well.
Exactly. That's the last thing you want, is that somehow now your name, your likeness, whatever information of yours is somehow associated with Al-Qaeda, for example. That you would not want to happen.
Another place where customers' trust is important is privacy. So
exactly.
We had Jimmy Wales from Wikipedia here.
Right.
We're talking about great Wall Street Journal studies called What They Know. They looked at the top 50 internet sites by traffic. There's only one that wasn't tracking visitors. That was Wikipedia. So what should companies think about as they? I know they want to know more and more about their customers, so they can better target. There might be good reasons for this. Publishing sites work with ad networks. What should they keep in mind to not alienate those customers at the same time?
So, and that's a great question. I think that, for somebody like me, the tracking is important, right? We want to know what's going on, and we want to be able to cater, and we want to be able, again, we can use that hyper-targeting, but we want to be able to serve up content that's relevant. We want to see where people are going, how they're going about it, but we don't want to be creepy, right? So we want to find that line between, creepy marketer and, hey, these guys are really looking out for me, and privacy is something that I believe you have to be transparent about. So if you went right to Listrak's website right now, right in our privacy statement, people call them privacy policies, privacy statement, you're going to see all the information about what cookies we're setting, what tracking information we're using, and I encourage everyone to do that. At the end of the day, you could say, yeah, you're just nesting that off in your privacy policy, but it is out there. And as I said earlier, the users today are savvy. I know guys that aren't privacy professionals. They're not email nerds like me. They're not, online geeks. They're my mom, my dad, my aunts, my uncles are now going and looking at privacy policies saying, is there going to be some potential issue here? And I think that's really neat. And it's not just because their son or nephew is a privacy guy. It's because, no, I got a letter from a retailer that said my stuff was stolen. I want to know how secure that is, or if they're sharing my data with somebody else. We know the famous story about the gentleman getting the direct mail piece that had his name, and then it said his daughter was killed in a car accident. Something like that should never happen. That piece of data should never have been in the hands of that direct mail marketer. And we want people to know. So be transparent. Tell people what we're tracking, what data we're using, and why.
And that transparency should move beyond the privacy policy, right? One way we definitely see this is with social media sharing.
Oh wow, yes.
So companies love perhaps having that Facebook button where they can share.
Right.
But customers want to know, well, what am I agreeing to now? Is all this stuff going to show up in my timeline and be sent to my friends?
Right. And so that's, and everybody likes to pick on Facebook when it comes to privacy. And I know a lot of folks at Facebook, and Facebook's awesome. Facebook has its place in the social world, and it's obviously the big guy. How do you when you're using that as a marketer and you're using a Facebook presence, how do you foster the trust in that when we always hear about, they're getting all this? I think transparency is important there as well, right? Why are we using Facebook? And again, that doesn't have to be on some big flashy banner, but having it available for your customer to know and go where to look and say, oh, okay, well, they are working with Facebook, but they disclose that here, what capacity that they're doing that. And I think that's important.
Well, James, I think you might have had the best line from the MarketingSherpa Media Center at IRCE. The biggest takeaway, don't be creepy.
Exactly, don't be creepy. How hard is that, right?
Right, well, thank you very much for your time, James.
Thank you.
And if you want more e-commerce and internet retailing tips, you can visit MarketingSherpa.com/IRCE to see all of the videos we're recording here.